Welcome to Face Forward, the podcast, the series that takes you behind the scenes of the riveting world of clinical trial management. I am your host, Valerie Coveney, and I am thrilled to be your guide on this journey through the nuances of planning, executing, and navigating the clinical research landscape. So today I am joined by Raelle Kennedy Brown, a brand marketing consultant, video producer, writer, patient advocate, and founder of Woke Within, a platform dedicated to empowering individuals living with chronic conditions through storytelling, education, and community connection. Through Woke Within, Raelle blends advocacy, lived experience, and communication strategy to help organizations better understand the emotional, cultural, and clinical dimensions of chronic illness, particularly for those with sensitive skin like eczema and other hyperinflammatory conditions. In today's episode, we'll explore the role of storytelling in patient advocacy, building trust and transparency in clinical trials, and designing research that reflects diversity and inclusion. So thank you for being here, Raelle.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here and be seen as a valuable voice for this subject.
Absolutely. So welcome. So if it's okay, we'll just get started here with my first question on your personal experience with eczema and how has it influenced you in your approach to advocacy?
Yeah, for sure. My approach, my lived experience, it brings empathy and urgency at the same time. And so, with my personal journey, my eczema, that is the advocacy. Me living it, simply sharing my voice and my story. Particularly in an interesting, impactful way when I can. But like I saw needs that weren't being met by the medical system at the time when I started about 7 years ago for myself. And so throughout my life, I just had unmet needs. And so finally, when I went through an extreme stage of eczema in 2018, which turned into something called topical steroid withdrawal, which is a separate condition than eczema, but though similar, it has heightened symptoms, all while your body is like going through a withdrawal process of a topical steroid addiction. And so that actually left me bedridden during the time, fully flared from head to toe with eczema, my hair falling out, like having no answers from doctors. So I turned to the internet and I found a community of common severe eczema and topical steroid withdrawal sufferers, but who suffered and shared their stories openly. So because of this, like I was later empowered to share my voice online through social media, creating this Woke Within Skin tag name. And that truly it allowed me to not only share my story, but master the art of storytelling to connect with the world really. So I had a lot to say about a condition, an illness that I suppressed for years and treated passively because it was simply my normal, not understanding the true impact on every part of my life, mentally, emotionally, and even financially, to be honest. I wanted to share more than just the story of my pain. I wanted better for other people who suffer like me once I found resources and my own voice to share. So, like I mentioned, creating Woke Within Skin, or the philosophy and the mindset of being woke within, it was a self-conscious internal effort towards choices of hope and love and positivity, but also acceptance of what's happening in my life and my body. My awareness had to be focused within rather than just the skin in order to survive. And so I meant that in a philosophical way, but also literal. When I said being aware within, because I knew that eczema relief and healing, it had so much more to do than just those external flares. There were internal organs even that mattered more as to why I was flaring, and I needed other people to know that as well, so that they can start to help their own suffering. So at the time, I didn't see anything promoting or focusing within or the inside out to tackle your skin problems for eczema. So yeah, there simply was only one main treatment given which was topical steroids at that time, 7 years ago, and that simply stopped working for me and many other people. So I had to create my own solutions, and there were nobody that I even saw that looked like me as a melanated person, melanated woman, and so that just forced me to focus again, so that I can create that name woke within using the word woke. So that's where the culture forward name came from, using that term, which was a for us by us word at the time, to pay attention and to be aware. So that was, yeah, so that was some of that backstory of where that came from. But in regards to the advocacy and the full storytelling aspect of it all, but highlights and gaps in care and communication so that you can target these demographics, these different cultures and races. When it comes to my specific advocacy work beyond just my social voice, there was such a disconnect of communication between patient and pharmaceutical companies or any company at large. There was no or very limited trust and zero awareness of understanding and empathy is how I felt as a patient during that time before being pulled into some of these rooms that gained me access to actually hear what's going on the inside. And it wasn't until I became more of an advocate for directly with the National Eczema Association as a patient research advocate that I learned how much pharma employees and other organizations like CROs actually they do care, and not only care but they want to listen. And so from there, listening that tackles the gaps in care of what patients like me are missing. And so one recurring theme I've noticed in my now 7 years as a patient advocate is the need to eliminate as many barriers as possible for a patient to find quick relief. And that included advocating for laws and bills to be changed in my state of Pennsylvania. So that patients didn't have to go through a step therapy in order to try new medication. That was one barrier. Then another way to eliminate these barriers included minor things like wording and language used to communicate to their core audience. These things are not minor at all when you're trying to focus on a certain demographic, especially. And so finding out from the patient how we talk about our condition and put that in your publications for the public, putting people of diverse backgrounds in your advertisements, very simple shifts that seem minor, but will make all the difference in your goal of gaining trust. And it had continually surprised me that throughout my life that I never saw anyone who looked like me as a melanated woman advertised as having eczema when I knew that African Americans were the most affected demographic of the condition. It turns out by me speaking blatantly and openly about this online, I became a part of a movement at that time. And so I learned about the term health equity and other industry terms shortly after. And so my personal journey and lived experience has been more tremendous than ever. Thought it would be both in building community and attracting advocacy opportunities. So let's see, one more thing in regards to the wording in industry versus what the patient is used to saying or understanding can be two different languages. Soft skills such as compassion and putting care in front of healthcare as the first word, but also listening before telling a patient what they need is key. Listen before design. Allow the patient to tell you what they're looking for. Don't just make assumptions based on their clinical history. Sometimes it can be a fixed one size fit all prescription, other times, and most times a patient needs a full care team. So all of this for eczema. And this may not be considered as a life-threatening disease, but it's surely life-altering. And the more you listen to everyday people's experiences, the more you will hear what they are missing. So this drives the need for inclusive trial design. When we are speaking directly to the clinical trial, inclusive trial design is key in order to get more inclusivity. It could be simply said, but this begins with, once again, listening, examining the market before creating a blueprint for that market to fit into. Maybe even focus groups, hiring employees who look like your target market, use their voice if they have a passion for it. Maybe even pay them extra if you can throw that in there. If they have any lived experience, cultural expertise. I know that doesn't make everyone making money decisions happy, but it's only right. And encourage patient-led education and support. The more informed a person can be about their treatment, the better. As much as the options can be presented in layperson terms, the better. That ability comes from outsourcing marketing to patient-led educational resources, or everyday people like micro influencers like myself, who have a real connection to the community.
Yes. So, Rael, you mentioned earlier that the Black community would be the biggest demographic for eczema. Could you elaborate more on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, highlighting patients of melanated skin, or Black people with eczema is just important, simply because they're human too. So, on a basis of perspective, of the basis of a business perspective, it only makes sense because African Americans, Black people have the highest percentage of being diagnosed with eczema. I wrote an article actually on that exact statistic, that I pulled from the CDC. And so the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and that reports that non-Hispanic Black children are 14.2% more likely to have eczema than non-Hispanic white children. So the numbers for the market are right in your face. Even expanding beyond Black Americans, Asian Americans are reported to have the most severe cases out of all races. So it's truly something that it impacts us, and it's just important to make sure they're included across the board. And so this clinical imagery and education materials, they simply lack representation, and it's being worked on now. Um, and because symptoms, they present differently on skin of color, and clinical imagery and education materials for doctors lack representation. Like I said, their textbooks or the continual education are just getting updated now to represent what that even looks like. So patients can be not only properly diagnosed, but also taken seriously for their severe symptoms. So people with melanated skin, like, it doesn't look bright red when we flare, and it's a deep brown or sometimes purplish, with like itchy bumps as well, and that's just the surface. So recently I actually just completed an in-person event in Houston, Texas, where I like co-presented a presentation with a top doctor in atopic dermatitis, to the Vietnamese American Medical Association. And so it was just a room full of doctors, students, and pharmacists, for their continued medical education course. And as practitioners, they started out not knowing little to nothing about the new biologics offered, and how it directly is changing people of color's lives with the new research that we have. And so it's truly an internal systemic problem, for this to be the case. And people are actively suffering, due to the lack of knowledge of everyone involved.
Okay, so Rael, what do you think are some reasons patients with eczema may be hesitant to participate in trials?
That's a great question. Yeah, historical mistrust in medical research, especially among marginalized groups, like, it's such a big problem. And so we can say all of the maybe what to do's and how to do it, but if you don't tackle the root cause, or concern of the matter, you still will be beating a dead horse. There's simply a cultural distrust in the medical system, and for rightful reason. And with all the information that even I know now, and I understand there's and that the fact that there are kind-hearted, genuine, concerned people who want better, and that the clinical trials are the only way in order um, to really understand the modern medication that we have now for research. But even knowing all of this, the facts are facts of history. And so particularly amongst marginalized groups. So I can't sit here and share the specific details of what that history is at this time, but I will say that there are, once again, minor details that can be worked on to like help ease that mistrust. And so fortunately, like there's treatments they're being given now, like to people of color, particularly that are biologic treatments. And so, like, they target the root cause of eczema and why we flare. And the more positive results that we get from this being shared in the field and getting that data, it kind of somewhat is like a workaround, I guess you could say, that we now do have research in regards to how certain treatments are impacting melanated people, and so that this could potentially encourage us or encourage them to sign up for some of those like beginning stages, since we see that things are clearly on the up and up in that. So that's a possible spin to try to get something out of that. But there's concerns even with being used as a placebo for symptom management. Knowing that I could be a placebo during a trial is an immediate turn off. The reason I'm even agreeing, say I'm hypothetically, the reason that I would even agree to something like this as a trial is for relief due to nothing else working. So yeah, I don't. My goal for signing up for something is not to go another day to potentially not get relief. So that's just some of the facts of the reality. But and another fear that's out there is truly the fear as being treated as a test subject rather than a partner. So the more that we can let patients know that their options, where they have a right to say no to things, and clear communication of this can work into their daily life. And how many simple things, how many doctor visits, how many times that you have to go through the process and reiterate the process multiple times to them, so that it's clear communication as to the risk and the benefits.
So you mentioned some direct strategies to help patients in recruitment and whatnot, but if we take it at a higher level here, how can sponsors and CROs build trust with hesitant communities?
In a similar way, I guess I kind of spoke on pharma in regards to this, but sponsors and CROs specifically, then truly that open dialogue you have to offer to patients for educational sessions even. And that can be done virtually, shared in a newsletter, promoted through people online who have the ear of the people. Collaborate with, like I said, collaborate with trusted community leaders and advocates. Those are the only way that you're going to get your name out there, and for people to actually pay attention. And focusing on those relationships with those community leaders, nonprofits, the advocates themselves, in particular, of those who have the voice of the people, I think is your main highlight as to how you can get trust, build that trust.
Definitely. Okay. So moving on here. So how has your personal journey with eczema shaped how you view wellness today?
Hmm. That's That's a great question. I absolutely love that question because it's exactly where I am right now. I have a chronic. My eczema is chronic. I deal with it, and constantly it will be there for my life. But I am actually doing very well currently. And so in regards to that, like my viewpoint of wellness has expanded so much because of my personal journey with eczema. As I was healing and recovering from some of my worst flares 7 years ago, trying to like rewire my entire nervous system and stress levels, everything like that. Like I realized that there's no endpoint to wellness. Like wellness is the everyday effort that you put in to feel better and live better than the day before. Because I'm putting into practice things that are good for my body and my spirit. That's why I'm well. It's not necessarily how what condition I may have or not. And so like that's even why I updated my Instagram handle earlier this year to Raelle as well. So that I could just be very straightforward because I wanted to and I deserve to claim that reality for myself. And so after having sickness taking the leading force really of my life for so long. So as much as eczema has impacted my life and stories are important, the stories of relief and continuous maintenance and ability to get back to the fullness of your life is just as important, if not more important, to highlight. Um, I that's it's like I said, it's truly where I am right now and I'm most excited about. And because generally, like unfortunately, wellness has it says and it's not unfortunately, but in a way, it has such a positive ring to it. Like it can at times cause something to cause you to somewhat compare then to badness. Like if you're not well, then you're bad. Like you're like you have bad health versus wellness can sometimes be seen as what it is. Like these imperfections versus perfection. And that's it's just simply not possible to reach perfection. So like to as much as we can like just cancel out that idea, I think is the better. It can't um, so yeah, the more that we can cancel out that idea that we're always chasing something, the better. So like I plan on continuing to share what my idea of wellness is in that realm and coexist completely within illness. And the fact that we don't want our condition to define us and to be sickly forever. So wellness is far more than how you feel externally. It's emotional, mental, spiritual, even in the sense that it impacts your entire spirit of being, like how you show up in the world. Yeah, that part can be a choice or like the only sense of control that we have. So like once again it wraps around my woke within kind of philosophy there. But yeah, it's our sense of control, simply the voice of me and it's really what I plan on creating more in like the next thing that I create. So I'm like really excited. And chronic conditions like eczema, like they impact every part of your being, your identity, your confidence in your daily life. So healing holistically, self-advocacy and community, like those are key. And sharing the stories to help others feel less alone. If you're open to sharing your story, make sure you tell it how you want it to be told. The power is in what's unique to you, and every voice counts. Seeing the shift in the narrative that companies have made in just the 7 years I've been aware of this industry, it makes it very clear that someone is listening and that our voices matter.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, for sharing this piece of your
Yeah.
personal life. I really
I really
appreciate it.
love I love that question, and I really I went in, but
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. So I know it went by quite fast. We're already to the end. We have one last question here, and it's kind of a send off for the future for the goal of your organization. So what advice would you give to organizations designing patient-centered trials?
absolutely. Yeah, really straightforward here are some of these answers just to kind of help wrap it all around. To listen deeply to patient stories before designing protocols. Consider the full live experience, not just clinical endpoints, and make space for emotional and cultural dimensions of care. Like truly give a safe space to people. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Reach out to people like me who either are tapped into where the real community is, or find organizations, especially nonprofit organizations, who are leading the charge for every type of patient. So yeah, treat patients as collaborators, not just participants.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rael. So this completes our episode for today. It was a pleasure having you, and I hope we get to have you again on the podcast.
No, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
As we conclude another illuminating episode of Face Forward, we find ourselves at the crossroads of science and progress. Remember that behind the jargon and statistics lie stories of unwavering commitment, meticulous observation, and the pursuit of evidence that shapes our understanding of health and disease. Stay at the forefront of knowledge and innovation and follow Face Forward on your preferred platform. My name is Valerie Kovney. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.